Okay, we now have a special speaker. The speaker is from South Africa, renowned. He's facing the front page of your program. He's an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a dynamo. We're going to hear from him, but first of all, let's see him on film.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
There is nothing extraordinary about me except that I was raised to believe I'm extraordinary.
You've heard of 32-year-old self-made millionaire.
Entrepreneur and global business speaker Vusi Thembekwayo.
So the real question is, what is wealth? Really? Everybody wants the outcome and the success. It's the difficulty to get there. That's the hard part. It has to be our generational mission to not just empower the self, but to empower others. The most exciting day of being an entrepreneur, I'm going to tell you now, is the day you decide to start your business. I want to belong to a generation that inspires young people to imagine a different future. I grew up without, I suffered, I was told I'm worthless. Now that I have it, I'm going to show everybody.
Okay, so, Vusi Thembekwayo. What other song could it be? Can anyone do the dance? No, we have to eat. You've seen the video of the Angolan children. Please, I want to say a little something about him. He's a global business speaker, private equity managing partner at Watermark Africa, chief executive of a Pan-African impact investment firm, My Growth Fund Venture Capital, and convener of leading research boutique IC Knowledge Bureau, ranked #1 in public speaking at the age of 17. There is so much more I can say, but it's better to let him say it. Please welcome Vusi Thembekwayo onto the stage. Top man, hit them. Fantastic.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Hello, everybody. Try that again. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm just going to ask the tech team who can see me through the glass screen. My presentation is auto-set to show the caption because we have people in our organization who are challenged in terms of their ability to hear. So if you could just turn off the caption on my presentation deck, that would really help me. They should be at the bottom of the screen. You see them, those two CCs. Just click on those. There we go. All right. Hi, everybody. Hi. Start again. Hi, everybody. Hi. I'm so excited to be here. I flew in 2 days early, thanks to Dr. Carlton, and I've been practicing my British accent. I've got in it. I've got in it. And yeah, that's been interesting. So I have to say, I'm not quite sure why I'm here, comrades. But a few things to say up front, if you will allow me, if that's okay. I have been, but only by God's incredible grace, I've had the opportunity now to speak professionally this year for 20 years. Thank you. And I think, as often happens as we get older, is you learn that the more you know, the more there is to know. And you begin to realize just how foolish you were with your youthful bravado. I'm kind of at that stage of my life. So I bring to you some ideas and thoughts and things to think about as entrepreneurs and business owners and builders. But I want to be clear. First, everything I'm going to be sharing is going to be based on what the science tells us. I'm a finance person, so I spend my life looking at income statements, balance sheets, structuring costs of capital, convincing investors to give us capital when they don't want to, convincing entrepreneurs to take a price point which they think is too low. And over the years, what I've learned is, you know, as Jay-Z once said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Thank you. There we go. You can tell the 1980s, 1990s babies. Let's just get a sense in the room. Who here is born in the 1980s? You guys are the generation that runs the world. You absolutely rock. You are old enough to be analog and young enough to be digital. Where are the 1990s babies? You can leave now. You can. So I have some thoughts that I'd like to. I have some thoughts that I'd like to share with you. I'm going to do three things while I'm up here. The first, I hope, is to offend you. It is my absolute privilege to offend. The platform is a place to serve, and my belief is we can only serve if we challenge. And so you will allow me, please, the grace to offend, the grace to challenge. That's the first thing I hope to do. The second thing I hope to do is to provoke. It might be different here, but certainly in my country, there are certain conversations that are just not allowed to be had. And I think that one of the challenges we face, in particular as a peoples of color, is the ability to have difficult conversations. So some of the backers in my businesses, some of the funders, the partners, the investors, have not been people that look like me. Because sadly, one of the things I've noticed is that people that look like me have tended to only want to back me when I was a sure winning horse. And I think I'm preaching to the choir right now. You all know what I'm talking about. And that can also breed a fair amount of contempt, to be completely honest. Because it is also that same community that then insists that you must give back to it once you've come into the money. Which, by the way, let's be honest, is also not the money, right? It's just what we perceive to be, I've arrived and I've got money. So I hope to provoke. I've, by God's grace, had the incredible privilege of working with people from different cultures, different parts of the world. Our firm is in 8 countries today as we speak. I'm sat full-time at our head office in Dubai. So we raise capital often from the GCC. The largest part of the business still in South Africa, where we started it now 10 years ago, thereabout. God's been so good. And we're seeing unbelievable and incredible growth of our business in the US now. So I can say this with, I'd like to think, some monicum of truth, which is this. The truths about us as a people are actually universal. If you go anywhere where you find us as a people, some of the things we struggle with are completely universal. I was in Jamaica less than a month ago. I'll be in Trinidad and Tobago in less than a month from now. And these issues are universal. And so what I hope to do is to just talk a little bit about why those issues are and what we need to do to fix it. And then the third thing I hope to do is to leave you with some stories to think about, stuff that you can go home and say over the barbecue, as they call it in the Americas, the braai, we call it in South Africa. I'm not quite sure what you guys call it here, although I don't think you have it because it's always raining here. It's always raining. It's always raining. I must tell you before I start, by the way, I must tell you that I did my master's here. I did my MBA up the road in Halben, and I hated the weather. I absolutely I don't understand how there are black people living here. I just don't get it. I don't get how you guys put up with this winter. Like, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. But all right, let's get started. So this is just to tell you that my team, I suppose, wants to make the point. But you know, you can find these things online. These are the things that I do, and I want to just pause on this for a second. Over the years, one of the things I've asked God to give me the grace to do is to experience the lived experiences of the people to whom He would have me speak. And so I say that only to say, similar to all of you here, I'm in business. Just before I came up on stage, there was a critical proposal that my team and I were submitting to some LPs who want to allocate capital for a fund we've been working on for 5-6 years now. That's what happens in my industry. You come up with a thesis, then you raise the capital, then you've got to convince. We were talking about Africa Rising in our firm before there was Africa Rising on Time magazine. And so some of us were there before it was in vogue and will be there long after it's in fashion. Because for us, it's not a fashion statement. We genuinely believe in our people. I genuinely believe in my people. Genuinely love and believe. And I think we are just as capable as every other race group, just as capable as every other culture. My own view is that the only people who don't believe that is us. And you know that to be true, right? Because any time when we band together and decide we're going to get, excuse my language, shit done, shit gets done. You don't believe me? Go ask President Ruto in Kenya. If you're recording, delete that. I don't want to. We've got a firm in Kenya. So in our asset management business, our Vuga business is a private equity business, which actually we were the majority shareholder of. We just exited that business, thank goodness. And my growth fund is our venture capital investment business. I'm the chairperson of Silicon Cape. So you'd be familiar with Silicon Valley. In Africa, we've got different silicons. We've got Silicon Dar, where I'll be a week from now in Tanzania. There's Silicon Nairobi. There's several silicons. I'm the chair of Silicon Cape. And of all of the silicons across Africa, we are the oldest. And when I took over the chairpersonship, one of the things I was really intentional about is I said to all of my fellow board directors and the executive team, we're going to take the work we've done, we're going to turn it into best practice, and we're going to evangelize it across the continent, so that other people building ecosystems for entrepreneurs of color that want to work in technology and venture aren't making the mistakes 10 years from now that we forgot about 5 years ago. Right? This idea that we have to help that old expression, as the seas rise, it elevates all ships. Right? Okay, great. Let's get started. Just to prove to you I'm not an AI, I want to introduce you to my parents. This is mom and dad. They met in the year 1965. They were 10 when they met, 20 years before I was born. For purpose of clarity, this is not a picture of mom and dad at 10. There's usually somebody in the room who's like a finance person, and they, deeply analytical, very skeptical. Yeah, that doesn't look right. No, it's just a picture of my mother and my father that I like. I come from a small town called Benoni, famous for the actress Charlize Theron. And this is me as a young lad winning the world championship here in London, 2002, actually. The lady next to me, Mrs. Buchanan, is the lady to whom I owe my entire career. She discovered my gift in public speaking and trained me. And it is to her, to whom I'm just so, words can't describe. And the two young ladies next to her were my sparring partners. So if you do classical competitive public speaking, you've got to prepare like a boxer. We spar. I was intended to go back this year to the World Championships. I wanted to go break my own record. But could you believe it? I didn't qualify. It's a true story. A former world champion, and I didn't qualify. So my team and I are working to get me to qualify again to go next year. I think I've just got to lose about another 5 kilos. I joke. It's not. That's not. Okay, great. So let's get started here first. If you ever do a presentation in front of people, quick trick for me to share with the entrepreneurs in the room, there's ordinarily, the literature tells us about 30% of the audience will not believe anything you have to say until you show them a graph or a statistical number. Ladies and gentlemen, here is my graph. That's for the 30%ers who don't believe. This is work done by a fellow called Angus Madison. He studied the world's economy since the death of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Whether or not you believe in that event, the quantitative evidence and the data are clear. And here's what the data tell us. The world we live in today is wealthier than it's ever been. They calculated the sum total of economic activity. We use the phrase when we talk about economic activity, gross domestic product, made up of infrastructure spending, imports, exports, and a whole host of other variables. Notice in that dark blue line, economic activity between the 1st and 18th century grows at a linear rate. 19th, 20th century, massive exponential rise. And you know of whose back that is, right? You know whose back it was and whose labor it was that built these industrial economies. Yeah. Let's move on, brothers and sisters. Let's move on. The lighter blue graph is the average number of years, the life expectancy. They say that until the year 1911, it was more dangerous for women to give birth, would you believe it, than it was for men to go to war. You know, it's incredible, the wonders of modern medicine we enjoy today. I'm willing to bet if you have the common flu, you probably don't even go to the doctor. You go to the local pharmacy, you get yourself your own medication. If you're anything like my mother, you have a cupboard that is a pharmacy. So true story, I was sick over the COVID period, and I went to my mom's. And she gave me paracetamol that was in a brown bottle, and the expiry date was engraved into the bottle. This was like an indication, because they don't engrave expiry dates on bottles anymore. They print it on the paper. So I looked at the bottle this after having consumed the paracetamol, and it said that the paracetamol expired in 1996. True story. So I said to her, why would you give me this? She says, no, paracetamol, when you're a black mother, paracetamol doesn't expire, it evolves. I don't know. I don't quite know what that means. By the way, congrats on 10 by 10, man. You're doing great work. Great work. So the world today, wealthier than it's ever been. Human beings, healthier than they've ever been. There has never been a better time to be this little species we are, called a Homo sapiens sapien, on this little rock called Earth. Never. So how do we get our fair share? That's what I really want to discuss. Well, here's where we're going to start. I'm going to give you guys two different companies. We're going to play a little exercise. To the non-believers in the room, here is my second graph now. This one is animated, so now I'm really winning you over. And here are two different companies. I'm a finance person, so please excuse me for starting with an income statement. I could have gone balance sheet, but I thought income statement was better for us. And what I've done is I've taken a static picture of both of these companies over the same year. The year is circa 2011, 2010, 2011. You know these companies, you're familiar with them, Alibaba and Amazon, the world's largest e-commerce companies. If we did a really deep dive, they're very different businesses, but I want you to just muse with me for a bit and let's keep a 40,000 feet view of Alibaba and Amazon. They are, as about as near as makes no difference, identical. They have a www address. Consumers go in, upload their credit card details, buy products, and products arrive where the products are intended to arrive. They are similar businesses. So let's have a look at these businesses then. You notice that off a $9.9 billion top line, this is American dollars, not Zimbabwean. That was good, right? Are there any Zimbos in the room? Any Zimbos? Any? Are there any Zimbos? Look, there's two of them. Welcome, lights. No, I joke. I'm joking. I'm joking. We've been looking for the opportunity to do business in your country for so long, but it's incredibly difficult as a regulated entity. Anyway, God willing, when the time comes. Unbelievable. The most industrious people, by the way, in Zim. Unbelievable. Anyway, $9.9 billion top line, $1.1 billion net profit. Now notice Amazon, $51 billion top line, $1.6 billion net profit. And here now is the litmus test. Imagine, if you will, that I gave you $1 and I asked you to buy either one of these shares. Both companies, imagine they sell at a notional $1 per share. Now you can't fractionalize, you can't do a contracts for difference, none of this complex stuff that they do in finance. Just buy an old school Warren Buffett share. Hands up in the room if based on the data, you would buy Alibaba. Hands up if you'd buy Amazon. Hands up if your hand is not going to go up no matter what I say. Thank you, ma'am. Duly noted. Now, I start here because 2014, I was a dragon in Africa's version of Dragon's Den and invested in several businesses. That's actually kind of how we started the story. That's how our fund started. I made investments. I just sold my own business. And then a friend of mine came to me and said, you've got to put these investments in a structure. I said, I was going to put them in a PTY. I said, why don't you create a fund, they turn those investments into equity, go to the market and raise capital against the thesis. I said, great, well, that's what we'll do, which we did do. And then I spent the next 3 years trying to convince capital providers to give us capital. So I want to be clear, I'm not here because I'm good. I'm here because I actually had the money to start. It's another fallacy, right? Those of us that win because we're better. No, you become better as you go. But the truth is that the starting line just isn't even. It's just not even. Anyway, I watched the number of entrepreneurs of color that we'd backed, predominantly, especially if they were female. The failure rates were 3 or 4 times what they were if you were young, white, and male. And I started to ask the question, what's the problem, comrades? If we are to fix it, where do we go? And I think one of the places we actually need to start is to make the point here, if you're an entrepreneur, there is no excuse not to be financially literate. Like, you run a business. You've got to know the difference between gross margin and gross profit and a markup. You've got to know what your cost of capital is. You actually have to know what the effective interest rate you're paying is on the overdraft that the bank has given you. You've got to know these things. This isn't my accountant knows. You need to know. You need to know what your working capital cycle is. You need to know. You need to know how much money is sitting in your inventory, how much is sitting in cash. You need to know how much of your capital is sitting in debtors. How old is your debtors book? These are simple, fundamental disciplines that we just have to get good at knowing. So, this is why I want to start with the financial picture. Now, what I've done here is a trick finance people pull often. You present a static picture at a point in time, and then you drive the audience towards a particular school of thought. So, hands up again if you said Alibaba. I just want to hazard a guess, but maybe so you can help me. Why did you vote Alibaba?
Well, probably the share price has been cheaper based on total revenue and also at 51 billion. I don't know where the hidden costs are, but it's only producing a net profit little above Alibaba.
Exactly, yeah. That's exactly right. So that's what we call SME thinking, small, medium enterprise thinking. Who here voted Amazon? Help me, why? Sure. And yourself, sir, in the front? Yeah. That's right. So these two businesses actually fundamentally underline the difference between small, medium enterprises, where we as a population group, frankly, are overrepresented, and venture enterprises, what we call IDE, innovation-driven enterprises. Just to share with you some of the stats last year, less than 2% of venture capital globally went to black entrepreneurs. Just listen to what I said, I'll say it again. Less than 2%. In that 2%, it's black entrepreneurs all over the world, of all genders, and across the spectrum of color. So we have a very serious problem. And it's in part because we kind of think about building businesses in this SME thinking. So let me share with you the difference. Now, what I've done here, you're really going to be impressed now if you like my graphs. What I've done here, Dr. Brown, this was just for you. I've given you Amazon's revenue to net income from the calendar year 97 to calendar year 2018. You notice the revenue is the blue, the net income is the orange. What's interesting about this picture? The picture I showed you was here. So if you didn't, to your point, buy the Amazon stock, you missed this entire upside. Now the real question is this: why wasn't Amazon turning a profit? I can't believe Jeff Bezos, one of the wealthiest people in the world today, arguably one of the most innovative entrepreneurs of the 20th century, I can't believe he doesn't know how to turn a profit. I think he knows how to price things right. So maybe he knows something we don't know. Here's what he knows. I'll go back. He knows that in an innovation-led enterprise, revenue is nothing more than the ability to generate cash flow, to win over more customers so that you can earn future profits. Simply said, he's not worried about generating revenue that makes him profits today. Quite the contrary, he generates revenues and he invests those revenues back into the business, into new product lines, new innovations, new markets. So when you look at his business at a point in time, it looks like he's losing money. But what's actually hidden here is where he's investing that new capital. The point you were making earlier about where's this additional money going? Why don't we see it? And so by the time we begin to see this exponential rate of growth, it's precisely because all of the things you see by the year 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18 were decisions taken 5 years before that, and the decisions 5 years before that show 5 years later. So maybe the first question for us is, what decision are you taking today for the next 5 years? I'm at the stage now when I talk to entrepreneurs, I'm not really interested, although you can give me your income statement, let me see your balance sheet. That's stuff we do just because you're doing a DD. But I'm at the state of understanding, tell me about the business, the market size, the unit economics. Tell me about the innovation. Tell me what you're doing different that somebody else is not doing. Tell me what's your plan to conquer? What we call in our firm the BOTW. What gives you the best opportunity to win? The BOTW. So how do we do it? First, you have to frame your context. Let me introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to my next wife. Please meet Mrs. Serena Williams Thembekwayo. It says in the good book, you've got to speak it into being. You've got to. I know she's married, but it's to a white guy. That ain't gonna last. 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 She ain't met this Zulu. That's all I know. That's all I know. That's all I know. The most dominating female tennis player in the history of the sport. More Grand Slam wins than any other. This is the thing about black people. When we dominate, yes, we dominate. You know, sometimes I see the things black people do and I'm like, you know, if I was not black, I also would not like me. This is not, it's like every time we show up at a TikTok dance challenge, you just know black people gonna kill it. You just know we're gonna kill it, you know? Most dominating female tennis player of all time, more Grand Slams won than any other female tennis player in the history of the sport. Unbelievable. I don't know if you know this. There's literally not a single blemish on Serena Williams. If you went on Google, typed Serena Williams, clicked on images, this is what you would see. Even the mole on her arm, that's not a mole. That's just an AI, artificial intelligence, imagined thing. That's a true story. That hair, that's not an extension. That's actually her natural hair. So those eyebrows, those aren't like tinted like that. Those are her natural eyebrows. You see that thing that looks like sweat? When Serena Williams plays, she doesn't sweat. She sweats Voss still water. I don't think you understand. This is Serena Williams. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh. Dr. Brown, when I was prepping for this, my daughter actually helped me with those lines. So just Anyway, Serena Williams is as good as she is because she plays a game where the context of the game hasn't changed. The rules have stayed the same. You and I are playing a game that's changing, not only today, but changing every single day. Every single day. And that game is called business. So the question for you and I is, if the game is changing, how do we need to show up? The first is to understand context. The second, if you're in 1980s babies would remember this, 1970s babies know it for sure. One of Morgan Freeman's standout performances is not just Shawshank Redemption, but it's that movie Lean on Me. He plays the HNIC. We don't need to talk about what that means. But he plays the HNIC, which is a principal at a particular school, and he says to these young people that discipline is not the enemy of enthusiasm. My God, I wish we would get this. That you can be enthusiastic and want to build and innovative, and that's not antithetical to being disciplined about what you do. I was thinking about how to demonstrate this, and so I race cars. I'm no good. I'm a Pro-Am racer driving the V12 series. And one of the ways you see it in the racing car business is what happens when you show up at the pit. Because you can be as talented as you want as a driver, but when you get to the pit, the team makes you. I brought you here two different pit times. The fastest first in the world in 1950, and then in 2013. Let's start first with 1950. I want you to tell me what it is about this video that sticks out at you, but let's let the video start first.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch.
Before I go to the year 2013, anything that sticks out at you about that video? The tire, yeah? Sure, what else? Absolutely. I mean, it's an incredible amount of manual labor, right? It's just, what else? There's something about it that if you use that third eye, that entrepreneur's innovator's eye, there's something about it that makes you go, It's recorded in 1950, but it's in color. Color didn't become ubiquitously available, not even affordable until the late 1970s. I went and researched why they recorded it in color. It turns out that in 1950, what you just watched was so ahead of its time that they used the most advanced form of film technology and the most expensive to record it. And we just watched it and laughed because the context has changed. Let's go to 2013 now. Why 2013? My team Ferrari was the fastest in 2013, so we've kind of paused there. And I want to show you how fast they pit a car in 2013. Have a look at this. What you just watched is essentially 4 different team members. Each team member is a designated area. The team that focuses on the front right tire only does front right. They don't tell back left what to do. So entrepreneurs, when you're running a business, don't let your people in sales tell your people in receiving what they should be doing. You build actual centers of excellence and discipline so people can execute on the work. That, though, is going to be almost antithetical to what I'm going to share with you next, but it holds true, and I'll explain in a moment. So that's the first thing you just saw. Second thing you just saw, the car comes in, they lift to 4 inches. It has to be 4, not 401, not 399. The FIA fines you if you don't get that correct. Then somebody goes down to their knees, removes the bolt, removes the tire. Somebody else puts on a new tire, puts on the bolt. While that's happening, they clean the driver's visor on the screen. They check the fuel temperature, fuel level, oil temperature, as well as water levels and water temperature. All of that in 1, 2, 3. 3 seconds. That was 10 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. It was 3 seconds. Anybody know what the fastest time pit today is? 2.7? 1.8? It's 1.64. Let me put it to you mathematically. In 10 years, they've improved by 50%. The game is changing. And the question for you, even in your business, has to be, are you? How do we get this right? The first thing is, especially here for business owners, you have to have the ability to see the elephant. A beautiful poem told in the Punjab province by the Hindi people. They say if you took an elephant and placed around it 6 blind men, asked them what they were each holding, they would tell you what felt for them contextually true, but because they're blind, they don't know to ask the question, is there anybody else here? What are you holding? And through a system of connected intelligence, what are we holding together? This is something that, in particular, other population groups get right. In my country, South Africa, if you are an Indian business person, you are not in business for yourself, you're in business for the community. If you're a Jewish business person, you're not in business for yourself, you're in business for the community. If you're a Jewish entrepreneur starting a business, you are guaranteed startup capital because there is somebody in the ecosystem who will provide it. If you are an Indian entrepreneur and you've just finished your chartered accountancy and you want to get into professional practice, you are guaranteed a job because they recognize that the community is bigger than the individual. A system of connected intelligence. And I think that this is something we have to be intentional about. It's why I accepted the Honorable Doctor's invitation to be here. Being intentional about connecting each other no matter where we are and sharing with each other insights, knowledge, expertise, so that we can all rise as a community. System of connected intelligence. Secondly, the next thing you've got to get right in building your business is you've got to get the culture right. This is so important. What the literature tells us is that entrepreneurs that build businesses that scale have 3 unmitigating non-negotiables: a culture of sharing, collaboration, and trust. I could have spent copious amounts of time going through what the literature actually tells us. This is based on our own research and data, so I know it to be true. I'll explain very quickly, given our time constraints. Sharing is giving without the expectation of reciprocity. Collaboration is working on something for the benefit of the community and or the business, comma, that is not aligned to your daily KPIs. Trust is what gives us one of the most important currencies in the modern world: speed. When people trust each other, they move quickly. There's a company actually that's been doing research on this, and they checked. They have an AI running on their email server. And they came up with an interesting study. The CEO was telling me they haven't published it yet, but he was telling me this because he's a friend of mine. He said they've now proven that the divisions in the company, and they're one of the world's largest financial services businesses, they've proven that in the divisions with the lowest trust, and I said, how do you know the divisions with the lowest trust? He said, we monitored on the email servers which divisions use the BCC function the most. That's good, right? And he said they've now actually proven that in the divisions where they had the lowest trust barometer, they had the lowest performance scores. Isn't that incredible? Now, one of the things I find interesting, and I shared with you the Formula One example because I share it with my own team, is the school I went to taught me that risk and innovation were antithetical, that I could either manage risk or innovate. What we learn from the sport of Formula One, by the way, is that risk and innovation can work together. That you can improve, move better, become more efficient, and at the same time, manage risk. Somebody needs to tell the banks this because they still haven't got that memo. I'll stop there and move on. The next thing, as entrepreneurs, I want you to think about is when you think about where you deliver customer experience, there are 5 layers. I'll share with you what these 5 layers are, and I just want you to think about which of these layers your own business is at. The first is the layer where we treat customers in an inconsistent way. Here, these businesses are manual, and they are often at the behest of the person with whom you're dealing. Right. In fact, I posted on LinkedIn the other day, my phone's been buzzing like crazy. In one of my, I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but in my country, you are multi-banked. You definitely don't bank with a single bank. But in one of my bank accounts, my private banker hasn't seen me since 2017. Hasn't seen me. I get one email from this guy once a year telling me my fees have gone up. And we have just moved out of our property. I've been looking to buy a new property. I've been reaching out to him for the past 3 months to come back to me and help me with the process of the application. Nothing. The other private bank is doing fantastically well. So I went on LinkedIn and I said, bank such and such really should just not call themselves a private bank because they don't know how that works. That was on my way to the airport. Between then and now, I think I've received about 20 emails. They've now gotten the CEO involved, the head of customer service, the COO, the head of legal. And I said to the CEO, actually, I was on the phone with him on the drive here because he rang me up. And I said to him, listen, I'm not the guy who goes out and tries to yell at things. And I wasn't even looking for your attention. This is something for you to think about because not everybody on LinkedIn has 1 million followers, right? Go and check the comments section and go talk to those customers. I'm good. I'll be okay. Go talk to the other customers who say, you know what? My private banker hasn't replied to my email over the past 3 months either. Because what they've got is an organization that is a bank, but it operates at this level. It depends on who the banker is. That's the service you get. This is a challenge for a lot of us entrepreneurial businesses. It depends on who I'm dealing with in your business. And so when people leave, service leaves. The level above this is where we manage customer expectations. Here, we hear the customer, but we don't listen. The language is quite specific. It's not just about hearing the customer, but you've got to listen. So it's not about managing expectations. It's intuitively tuning in to what your clients and your customers are saying and making the necessary adjustments. This is very hard to do because the best customers will be critical, as they should be. The level above that is where most of us can only hope to get to. And here is where we standardize customer experience. We understand the customer so well that we've got our systems down, we've got our standard operating processes, we've got process engineers running in our companies, we're measuring things like SLA, uptime, delivery time, and a whole host of things. And here, we understand customers and what they want, so we standardize our experiences. What's important to make the point of is we are efficient, but we're still a non-emotional business. Said differently, people have no emotional affinity to your business. Nobody wants to, take their partner on a romantic dinner to a McDonald's. It's functional, but it's non-emotive, right? Yet everywhere in the world you go, a Big Mac tastes like a Big Mac. An incredibly well-engineered organization. Lots of respect for McDonald's. What can you do? And this, I suppose, is the challenge for entrepreneurs in the room. You can hope to do the following. First, try and just get to this next level. At the next level, you can predict customer experiences. Here, it's about having insights, data analytics about what your customers are looking for and architecturing your services and your service offering around the actual customer requirements, making it predictable. But the level above that is perhaps the hardest. Even the largest organizations struggle to reach that. And the level above that is where we optimize our customer experiences and we turn our customers into brand ambassadors. Here's how you know when your customers are brand ambassadors. They will act as an extension of your brand without your permission. I'm a Lego user. I belong to the Lego user group. I don't know how many of you here in the Lego user group. But Lego users belong to Lego user groups. There's hundreds of Lego user groups all over the world. Once a year, we meet at a mega Lego user conference, and we all bring our little Lego pieces, and we compete with who's got the best Lego set. Lego has nothing to do with this competition. We, the Lego user groups, then contribute to a fund, and at the end of the year, the person who wins the prize. Last year, it was $1.1 million. And all these Lego user groups from around the world come together. Now, let me tell you what a material change that is. 15 years ago, a young man called Jake in the United States took those little old school camcorders, recorded a little film using his Lego set. Lego sued him. They sued him. That CEO was asked to leave. A new CEO came in Bulent, Denmark, where Lego was based. And that new CEO had come from McKinsey. And of course, as you do when you're a new CEO, one of the things you do in your DD is you go through the list of litigations you've got going. And he said, what is this lawsuit with Jake? And they said, it's this kid. He recorded this video and posted it on YouTube. I said, so why are we suing him? Called the kid to come in. The kid was like, you should really make Lego movies. Does anybody today want to venture what is the fastest growing revenue line and the largest contributor to net profit at Lego in their business today? Lego movies. Because it's a zero marginal cost business. Every time you watch a Lego movie, they earn a license fee, but the factory is not producing another plastic brick. It's really about recognizing that your best customers aren't always going to compliment you. And you have to have the ability to take that feedback. By the way, my team's going to send a feedback link when I'm done here. Make sure I get a 5 out of 5. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. That's not important. So that's at a customer level. Now, if you want to think about how do you build that customer experience, Dr. Brown, I promised you that I was going to bring the what to do. So I'm hoping I'm delivering, comrade. It's very important for me. If you want to think about how you do this, because what I just shared with you is the what to do. Yes? How do you do it? It's actually not really complex. There are 4 things you've actually got to think about in your business. This is your customer experience metrics. You've got to ensure that you're relevant, responsive, convenient, and reliable. What do these mean? It's just words. Let's talk first about convenient. That's about offering the customer choice and being timely. For those of you who operate in businesses that are driven by seasons, fashion businesses, food businesses, retail businesses, say, you know that there are seasonality to your business. So you want to be timely with your product offering. But you also want to offer the customer choice. Choice is one of the most contentious subjects of study in the marketing sciences because there actually is too much thing as too much choice. You know this to be true. If you've ever arrived at the parking of a mall and there's nobody there, what's the problem you face? Where do I park? There's too many options. But if you ever arrive at the parking at a mall and there's all of these parking spots taken and the only one available is the parallel parking one, suddenly you know how to parallel park because they've limited your options. Yes, it's the similar challenge I think that Netflix is facing. Am I the only one who spends 10 minutes flicking through Netflix looking for the next show to watch? Just too much choice. So there is such a thing as rationalizing your choice set. The rule of 3 here for entrepreneurs must be recommended. Have in your product suite, on the left, the product so cheap that the customer doesn't want to buy it because they don't want to associate it with. And on the right, so expensive that they can't afford it. And it actually mentally just funnels your customer towards the middle. It's why people think about wearing, let me think about it like a Rolex, say, or a Breitling as a watch, because you might not want to wear a Seiko, but you can't afford a Patek Philippe. I'll come back to that. So choice, and the most important I have to add here is consistency. Listen, when it comes to customer experience, if you hear nothing else from our time today, please help me deliver this. Being inconsistently good is worse than being consistently bad. See, when you're bad, you're bad. The customers know what they're expecting. That's why you guys voted the way you did do. No, I'm not. No. Okay, let's move on. So the next is to be responsive. And what does being responsive mean? It means you listen with the intent to understand so you can act. This is so specific, not with the intent to respond. Listen with the intent to understand. I have a theory. It's just a theory. I have no scientific evidence to back this. My theory is that women are better at this than we men are. And I'll prove it to you. My daughter is 12 going on 32. And her and I probably have an argument 2 or 3 times a week because she just likes to argue. I was thinking on the flight here, how many arguments have I won against my daughter? Any takers? Not a single one. And then I started going through the list of all the women in my life. I was like, I've never won an argument against my daughter. I've certainly never won an argument against my sister. My sister can argue you to the wazoo. I've never won an argument against my mom. All of my aunts are such fantastic arguers that if you visit our home at a family meeting, you know those black family meetings? Yeah, if you visit my home at a family meeting, it sounds like parliament. It's unbelievable. They're just so good at arguing. And here's what I realize. Here's what I think. It's just my theory. I think women argue better because women start an argument before men know the argument has started. It's just a theory. I think for us men, when we start arguing, that's when the argument starts. But there are some of you here who want an argument with your husband. It started 2 weeks ago. He doesn't even know it started yet. And you're only going to raise it in a week's time. And what you're doing is you're archiving the evidence. You're keeping all the facts in your head. Yeah. And then when the argument starts, he goes, how do you even know that? You're like, I got my files. They just argue differently. And so the point is to listen with the intent to understand so that you can act. Question for you is, what are your listening mechanisms? What are you using to listen? Third, be relevant. What does that mean? Be personalized and meaningful. Underline the word personalized. Know the actual requirements of your customers and your clients. And then the most important is keep your brand promise. Whatever it is that you commit as your brand promise in your business, you keep it. Our brand promise keeps me up at night because it says we exist for the entrepreneur. When we made it up, when we came up with it, we did like some research and came up with it. I was like, oh, this is such a cool line. It's caused me so many sleepless nights. Because it means when I've got to make a competing decision that has competing interests between the entrepreneur and the capital provider, I have to choose the entrepreneur. It means that even if sometimes when the business case doesn't support what the entrepreneur wants to do, I have to support the entrepreneur. Because we said we exist for the entrepreneur. Right? I'm cognizant of time. I'm going to be wrapping soon. Might I ask 5 minutes to wrap? Is that okay? Is that okay, Doc? This is, you can put this in the bundle. This is more for less, value for money. It ain't gonna cost you more. So what? So what? First is, it's really important to see your customers as they see themselves. In the world I grew up in, we used to see people in the demographic. But you and I know today to be true that customers actually exist as a psychographic. When I told my daughter I was coming to London, she said, oh, that's that place where they did Supercell. I was like, yes, that one. Because what the internet has done is it's collapsed borders. It's broken down identification barriers. And so young people all over the world kind of see themselves the same way. They aspire for the same things, right? And so don't get locked in seeing your clients as a demographic, but rather see them as a psychographic. Then the third thing is to understand that value is changing. 5 fundamental ways value is changing in today's world, and I'll leave this with you all. First is around identity. This is why Black Panther was such a big movie. I don't know about you, but for the first time as Africans, we saw ourselves represented into something aspirational on Hollywood. This was a big deal for us. And so we all Wakanda'd forever, because even though the place is fictional, the aspiration is real. And so take on the opportunity to use your business to help the entrepreneurs or to help your clients identify with that. And if you look at our logo at My Growth Fund, it's the African logo made up of the various dots connecting it. And so we think about how do we truly meaningfully connect all peoples of color and African descent across the world to home. Yeah. Second is, the second way that value is changing is wealth. Wealth is fundamentally shifting today. If you are my generation, wealth for me was Gordon Gekko. Greed is good, right? It was on the second Wall Street movie when Shia LaBeouf asks, the guy said, you've got all this money, how much more do you want? He says, the answer to how much money is always more. I look at the entrepreneurs we work with today, in particular the younger people coming up, and for them, wealth is different. It's relationships, it's networks, it's conversations, it's enriching discussions, it's being connected to people in other parts of the world. Third, legacy. In my mother's generation, legacy was the relationships you were in. In my generation, legacy is what are we building? A challenge here for us, in particular Black entrepreneurs, please build something that will outlive you. Make it truly multi-generational. The fourth is this archetype of binary ideas. I come from a world of grays, blacks and whites, and suddenly the world is ebbing around the gray in the middle. Feel however you will about it. It's where the world is today. And lastly, the idea of free. I encourage all of you in this room to make sure that you get that right. How do you do this? Simple. When you leave here, there are 3 things. First, make sure that you have all of the hindsight that you need, especially entrepreneurs in the room. Get your stats right, your facts right, get your financials right, your information right. Let's get the hindsight right. Because even though hindsight doesn't tell you what's coming, at the very least it ensures that you understand what's happened. And this is why we say hindsight is 20/20. It's immutable. You can't change the past. Second, once you get your hindsight right, be careful not to allow the hindsight to stop you from what you're doing next. A word of caution here, please. Often, if you are an entrepreneur and you're an innovator, often the people in your life that you look up to will disappoint you. This is the curse that comes with seeing the world that doesn't yet exist, is where you have vision, other people only have sight. And so you've got to be so careful not to allow the heroes of the past to tell you what future you should build. And I thought about how to demonstrate this. So as I wrap, just watch this quick video.
People who've been in the rocketry business for decades, who say about you that you don't know what you don't know.
Well, I suppose that's true of anyone. How can anyone know what they don't know?
But when critics say you can't do this, your answer to them is,
we've done it.
He's done it in partnership with NASA, which has given SpaceX technical advice and a contract worth up to $1.6 billion, mostly for 12 cargo flights to the space station. But SpaceX's lack of experience bothers some NASA legends like Apollo astronauts Neil Armstrong and Gene Cernan. They've testified to Congress that the Obama administration's drive to commercialize space could compromise safety and eventually cost the taxpayers.
Now, imagine having the first man on the moon tell you that your venture into space is fool's gold. How would you feel? What you see from this video is that even an Elon Musk, and say whatever you will about him, I have my own views, but you can't take away what he's achieved in business. And that even he faces that level of resistance, because where you have vision, often the people that had vision yesterday only have sight for today. So be careful of hindsight. It's important, but what you want to get from hindsight is, what does it all mean? Insight. Knowing what we know, what does it tell us about today? Now I want to encourage you here not to stop there. What you truly want to be doing is having foresight conversations. And foresight is about what's happening around the corner. What are the things we need to be aware of? What are the changes we need to be making? I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I have two final requests, if it's okay. Dr. Brown, we have a scale readiness test in our firm that we help entrepreneurs with. It's a free test. You take it online. You answer several questions. It's an AI-driven test based on over 1,000 companies we've worked with. And what it does is it takes the score and it says to you, these are the things you should work on in your business. And so what I've done is I've asked my team to prepare a QR code. I'm going to ask the guys at the tech to go to the very last slide for me and just show that. And when you scan it, you can take that scale readiness test in your own time, That's the first request, please. The second request is this. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I've noticed some of you taking pictures. I prepared this presentation for you all here. I'm very happy to leave a full copy with the organizing team, and they can share the deck with you all for you to have in your own time. There is more that binds us than there is that divides us. Geography, time, and space are all things that as a community we have to have the fortitude to overcome. I'm heartened when I see young people connecting all over the world, dancing to the same beats, coming from different countries. And I think as we have young people dancing on TikTok videos to the same beat, maybe it's time for those of us who are slightly older to dance to the same beat in business. And so what I hope is the opportunity to connect with all of you here, the opportunity to share and hear your own experiences, the opportunity to learn from all of you, and if any way that I can, the opportunity to assist. To the good people who've put this together, to the sponsors that made this possible. I know these things don't happen without challenge. I want to say thank you, and to yourself, Dr. Brown, thank you as well. It's slide number 91. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Vusi, thank you very much indeed.